3 days before Christmas, the woman who owned the house I cleaned sat me down in her glass-walled study, slid a check across a table that probably cost more than my childhood home, and told me to disappear from her son's life forever. No yelling, no insults, just a calm, practiced voice that said, "Take it, fix the problem, and leave." I remember staring at that check, my hands shaking my stomach tight, thinking this is how they erase people like me. Yeah, that was the moment everything in my life split in two. My name back then was Lily Carter. I was 23, broke, invisible, and working as a live-in housekeeper for one of the most powerful families in the city, the Hawthorns. Old money, new power, spotless reputation. To the outside world, they were untouchable. To me, they were just the people whose floors I scrubbed before sunrise and whose conversations I overheard when they thought no one was listening. I grew up being overlooked. Not abused in some dramatic movie way, just ignored. Teachers forgot my name. Bosses spoke over me. Men looked through me. You learn early how to be quiet when the world has already decided you don't matter. So, when I took the job at the Hawthorne estate, I told myself it was temporary. Save money, survive, move on. Their son Ryan Hawthorne barely noticed me at first. He was handsome, in that effortless way money gives. You always dressed perfectly, always distracted. People laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny. I stayed out of his way. That was the rule. But loneliness has a way of sneaking up on people, especially the ones who swear they don't need anyone. One night he came home late drunk, but not sloppy, just heavy with something he couldn't name. I was still working, folding laundry in the living room. He sat down, started talking, not at me exactly, more like into the quiet. About pressure, about expectations, about never being good enough for a mother who built an empire and expected him to inherit it without cracking. I listened. That's what invisible people do best. That night crossed a line neither of us pretended was smart. The morning after was silence. He avoided me. I avoided him. I told myself it was over, a mistake. One night, nothing more. Then my body betrayed me. I noticed the exhaustion first, then the nausea, then the fear that settled deep in my bones when I counted the weeks. I hid it as long as I could. Bigger uniforms, sweaters in summer, moving slower, smiling more, saying less. Until Mrs. Hawthorne noticed blood on a sheet. She didn't ask if I was okay, she ordered me into the car. At the hospital, the doctor spoke gently. "You're pregnant. Stress-related bleeding. You need rest." Mrs. Hawthorne didn't sit down. She didn't comfort me. She turned to Ryan and slapped him so hard the sound echoed off the walls. "What did you do?" she asked, voice low and lethal. Ryan shrugged. I'll never forget that shrug. Casual, detached. It happened. We can handle it. That word again. Handle. The next day I was summoned to her study. Sunlight everywhere, glass, steel power. She stood while I sat, already a message. She talked about reputation, about headlines, about how one story could destroy everything she'd built. Then she slid the envelope toward me. "Enough money to change my life," she said. "Leave the country. Start fresh. No one ever has to know." I whispered, "And the baby." Her eyes hardened. "There will be no baby." I cried. I begged. I offered to leave without money. She told me I wasn't in a position to negotiate, that poor girls like me didn't understand consequences. Ryan didn't say a word. That silence broke something in me. I signed the papers with shaking hands, took the envelope, packed a small bag, and walked out of that mansion before sunrise. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Here's the part they never expected. I never did what she demanded. I used that money to run, yes, but not to erase life. I disappeared to protect it. I moved to another state. I worked 3 jobs while pregnant. I slept on a mattress on the floor. I studied at night while my body ached. I learned how to survive without asking permission. And then they came. Not one baby. 4. 4 boys, identical, loud, hungry, alive. I named them Ethan, Noah, Miles, and Luke. They became my reason for everything. I skipped meals so they could eat. I took night shifts so they could have daylight. I built a small business from nothing. Cleaning offices at first, then managing contracts, then hiring other women who'd been overlooked just like me. Years passed. I changed my name. Lily became Elena Brooks. Not to hide, but to grow. My boys grew tall, sharp, observant. They asked questions early. Smart ones. Do we have a dad? I told them the truth. Not the cruel version, not the fairy tale, just the truth. One day my oldest looked at me and said, "So they tried to buy us before we were born." That's when I knew it was time. We didn't come back quietly. 10 years after I walked out of that mansion, I drove back through those gates in a black car I owned. I stepped out in a tailored suit I paid for. My sons walked behind me, calm, confident, unimpressed by marble and chandeliers. Mrs. Hawthorne froze when she saw me. Ryan didn't recognize me at first. That stung more than I expected. I told them why I was there. Not for money, not for revenge, for answers, for acknowledgement, for truth. My sons stood there silent, watching two people who once decided they didn't deserve to exist. One of them finally spoke. "If you tried to buy our silence before we were born, why do you think we want your money now?" That question cracked the room open. The story didn't stay quiet. It never does. Journalists found it. Stocks dipped. The Hawthorne reputation trembled, and for the first time in her life, Mrs. Hawthorne had to choose between control and truth. She chose truth. She confessed publicly. Everything. The check, the demand, the attempt to erase lives. The empire took a hit, a big one. But something else happened, too. She cried. Real tears. Not strategic ones. Human ones. She knelt in front of my sons and apologized not as a billionaire but as a woman who finally understood the cost of her fear. We didn't forgive her on the spot. Forgiveness isn't automatic. It's earned. But we listened. Ryan tried to offer money. Schools, trust funds. I shut that down fast. "They're not for sale," I said. They never were. In the end, we left on our terms. No contracts, no silence clauses, just boundaries and truth. I didn't come back to win money. I came back to win my voice. Here's what I learned. People like me aren't weak because we're quiet. We're quiet because we're watching. And when we finally stand up, it's never loud at first. It's steady. It's unstoppable. So now I want to ask you something. Was Mrs. Hawthorne evil or just a product of a world that values reputation over people? Was Ryan careless or cruel? And what would you have done if you were me? Staring at that check being told your life could be erased with a signature. Tell me what you think. Share your story. Argue with me if you want. Because conversations like this matter, and silence, I've learned, is the most expensive thing of all.